Welcome back to another episode of The Farming Chefs. This is the channel where we do food from seed to plate, food that makes you feel good in support of a healthy planet and a healthy gut. We are Sophie and Philippe, two professional chefs / farmers, taking you along on our new adventure of setting up our second regenerative farm in Central Portugal. A new climate, a new soil, and a lot of new adventures. So far, this last 2 weeks, things have not been looking up for us. I'm going to give you a quick update today on what's been happening, but I mostly want to spend this episode talking about our chickens, our laying hens, how we treat them, what we feed them, and much more. Let's get started. Many of you probably remember the moment we got our chickens onto the farm. So we have 20 laying hens right now. We bought 15 initially, but we added 5 brown ones because, well, we thought that would just look nicer color-wise. They started laying their first eggs, and that's been very exciting. The kids especially have been thrilled to go and harvest some eggs every day. So let's have a quick look at the coop. This is an obstacle I take every day. It's electric. I don't like getting shocked. I think nobody likes getting shocked. So I take off the electricity. As most of you know, we farm regeneratively, which means that we strip graze all our animals and we move them onto fresh pasture every day. Chickens are no exceptions on our farm. I'm going to show you how we work this coop. This very lightweight coop made it all the way from Italy, and as you can tell, there are no fancy materials being used. It's simple tires from wheelbarrows, some polyester, some golfing panels, and some wired mesh. Philippe built this coop in half a day's work, and our main objective was to keep it light and functional. It didn't need to win a beauty prize, it just needed to withstand, if you will, the test of time, and of course, be easy to move for everyone that ever sets foot on a farm and helps around. We are not all strong men like Philippe, so it's of high importance that I was also able to move this coop. What are its neat features? We have our nesting boxes, which are easily accessible from the back right here. This is super simple. You just turn the hatch, open up, voila. And I get a premium view into our 6 nesting boxes. We can actually remove these nesting boxes, that way we can clean them easily. And there you go. On the side we have a watering system. The way our watering system works is nothing fancy but extremely efficient. This yellow bucket is filled with water, and down a plastic pliable tube the water comes down into a drip system attached to 5 different nipples on which the chickens can then nibble, and that way releasing drips of water. So what I really love about this system is that every day I just take off the old shirt. This is to prevent big things from falling in, and then whoop, voila, and now it's ready to be filled again. And we have our latest addition, which is an electronic, or actually battery fed chicken gate, which closes automatically when the sun goes down, and it opens automatically when the sun comes up, which is a real game changer, because before that we were those people opening the chute, meaning we needed to spend a lot more time out here in the meadow. So what do we feed our chickens, and how much do we feed our chickens? This is quite an important topic when you're on a farm. Since you're paying for this feed, you really don't want to be overfeeding. That is such a waste. So an average adult laying hen needs 150 grams of feed a day, if it's a balanced nutritional feed, that is. So what you do is you bring in your scales. I don't often weigh things, but this is one of the things that really pays off to weigh. You weigh it out once. You then designate, of course, the same bucket. This is now forever and always your chicken feeding bucket. You mark out where the level of food is. So for us, we are 20 laying hens in right now. That means we're feeding 3 kilograms of feed a day. I will try to convert that to ounces, and I'll write that down below. And then I mark off that level here in the bucket. This means that now every day I can just fill up the bucket. I know it's the right amount, and I can hop on out, feed those chickens, and know that I'm not wasting a dime. Chickens are actually super interesting creatures, and what you can see here, or maybe you can't, is an actual pit that they dug. So they'll scratch and scratch and scratch with their paws until they create these pits where they have loose sand. where they hit earth and then they find a layer of sand or whatever the soil is, of course, and then they bathe in it. It's the cutest thing to watch, and it's their way of keeping parasites off their body, because there is such a thing as a chicken flea, let's say, chicken lice, and by covering their skin with sand, they actually deter these parasites from latching onto them. All right, so let me show you how you open this puppy up. We've got a nice door handle on here. We've got this to keep it up. So this is if you want to dive on in here, which you don't often have to, and that's one of the advantages of this coop. So we've got roosts in here. It's a very important part of building a chicken coop that some people tend to forget about. They have to be the right width for the claws of a chicken to be comfortable on them. So when you decide the thickness of your roost, be sure that your claw of your chicken fits around it, and that's anywhere between 2.5 to 5 centimeters. Chickens are naturally forest animals and they tend to sleep in trees. So just imagine that when a chicken goes to sleep, it wants to be sitting on a branch, and the roost is an imitation of that branch. So unfortunately, chickens don't give too much of a flying F's where they poop. So you gotta clean out the nest boxes at least once a week, if not more, depending on how bad they've been. So what we do is we just chuck it out into pasture. If they really are dirty, they might need a good wash, but since it's dry season now, and then we'll just fill them up with some more straw. And done. Job well done. Close her up. There you go. Now let's go to the update section of this episode. So unfortunately, I'm standing in the vegetable garden right now. Things are not as expected. We are about 3.5 weeks into planting, a little bit longer even maybe, and our plants are just mostly stagnated and looking very sad. And obviously that's a very sad development. We are having the soil tested. I'll make another episode about that to see what is the matter. But we first of all can say that our compost analysis report definitely wasn't correct, because if it would have been what it says it was, we would not be having this problem. So we'll keep you posted on this development. It's quite a dire one for us. Of course, we have our little test garden still, and that's good. But yeah, we are now contemplating alternative options, maybe building a second garden really quickly at the front of the farm, or adding on another layer of compost and replant. But in short, we are now behind. So what's happening mostly is what you see here, which is really stagnated growth. This is a courgette. It's been in here for weeks. It should be at least 5 times the size. The leaf should be amazingly big, and some flowers could already be forming. Unfortunately, none of that, as you see. This courgette is the size of my hand. Another indicator that something is amiss is that our corn especially is turning red and yellow, which usually could be a sign of nutrients deficiency, meaning that this compost is not what it seems. I think philosophically speaking, this is actually also quite a nice lesson, because when you're farming, not everything you do turns out the way you want it to. If only all farms would be in perfect conditions at all times without any problems, and that of course is quite unrealistic. But this setback has been really quite a surprise, since we managed the whole situation in order to succeed. And it's it's not a human error or weather conditions, but it really seems to be the problem that we got scammed. And yeah, that does make it a little bit harder to bear. As you know, in our last episode, I discussed this beautiful pear tree that is standing behind me. It is unfortunately infected with a bacterial disease called fire blight, which means the leaves are scorched as if they've been burnt by fire. We've been treating it homeopathically since we've discovered it. Every 3 days we spray it with causticum. Unfortunately, it's not seeming to have a great effect. The tree is still very much suffering, and the scorched leaves are not disappearing. I think that the best course of action at this point is to accept that we, for this season at least, lost the harvest for this tree. And next year, I don't want to cut it yet. That's the ultimate course of action in case next year is just as bad and we cannot homeopathically treat it, or with maybe another organic medicine that I can find online. We will then have to get rid of this tree because it is also a bit of a hazard. It can infect other trees. But I think, and I have high hopes for this approach, that next year, before the season starts, just when it's starting to come into leaf, we're going to start treating it preventively with a homeopathic treatment, and that usually does the trick. So more on this tree next year. For now, tree, we love you. We're sorry you're suffering. You're gonna make it. I believe in you. Let's go and have a look at our medlar. It's actually another problematic item on our farm. Whoever said that farming was easy, right? There is a lot of fruit. Unfortunately, most of it is actually shriveled or has sort of died off. And again, that's also part of this disease. This tree should be yellow by all the fruit that it has, but the fruit remained very small. What we will do to treat this tree is actually the same thing that I just discussed about the pear. This week also something interesting happened off-site. We were walking home, Fia and I, from the farm. So Fia spotted this tomcat that we often see around and is always quite docile and sweet. She ran towards him and he just stayed there. He was curled up in a position as if he was just relaxing. And as I looked down on the animal, I thought it was eating some sort of rotting piece of meat with bones sticking out, until I realized that it was actually his own paw. So this cat had been in a car accident and had been walking around on 3 legs with one of his paws basically rotting off. So we did what I think all good humans would do. We took it and we put it in a little basket and then took it home, and Fia was quite upset. She had to cry and she kept saying we need to bring it to the vet. But in this rural area, we only have our vet come every night at 8. He has an office that opens in a nearby village. So we had to wait almost the entire day before we could take the cat there. At 8 o'clock we went to the vet. I and Renato went there, and then we showed him the cat and he looked at it and he said, "This is a wonder that this cat is still alive." We discussed amputating. He said it probably would be better to put it down because he thought that there was such a big infection in the leg that he couldn't be saved. But I insisted because I looked at this cat and I thought, if you've been alive for more than a week and you're looking like you are, I mean, he was emaciated and obviously in bad condition, but he was still weirdly chirpy about the whole thing. I'm gonna give you a chance. So then we amputated the leg. Well, the vet obviously amputated the leg right in front of me. That was a very interesting experience. The cat was sedated and I got to see a live amputation, which is a really interesting experience. I know some of you will think that's very gruesome. I've sort of always liked those kind of things. Mostly because I just find it very interesting. And then we took the cat home with his amputated paw. It's very little of it is left, as you can tell. And then we nursed it back to health. And now it's walking around and it's back on the streets and looking great. And he comes to our house to eat every night now. So I think that was our good deed of the week. And there you have it, guys. That's our farm update. I hope you learned something new about chickens, and next week there'll be much more to tell because there's always stuff happening on the farm. I hope you enjoyed our little cat saving action. I know we did, and we're very happy with that 3-legged monster. So sending you all our love and best wishes. See you on the next one. The Farming Chefs. Peace out.